It's another time for Mental Clinic. This is where we challenge what you believe. We challenge your truth, your working truth. We challenge your concepts. We challenge your ideals, especially when they do not um, offer you the freedom, the satisfaction, the liberty that the Spirit of God gives you. And so it is important to understand that every truth that you have that does not set you free means that you require a higher truth. And in our life, we need to always upgrade. Not that truths are subject to variation, but of course, you can hold on or held on to a particular truth um, that has not been tested or does not based on the internal truth or the what they call the divine truth. We can hold the truth like, oh, why should men go to the kitchen? It's subjective because it's relative. Um, Anger is a natural phenomenon, so I am exposed. It can hold that truth, but there's also truth that will say, hey, anger is the worst emotional expression of a man. Of course, you could hear that anger dwelt in the bosom of fools. Maybe you haven't heard that. So here we want to challenge your status quo where you are standing, cycling. We want to be able to bust you. We want to be able to float you. We want to be able to bring you to that place of core flexibility where you constantly upgrade, upscale, mature, evolve, and grow. And that's why for us here, your life improvement, your life maturity, your life evolution, and your life growth, when you grow, is essential to your well being, is essential to the state of your life. So here we try we intentionally focus on your mind structure, the texture of your mind state, because the interior of your life would determine your external experience. If you're not peaceful inside, you can't find peace outside. If you're not wealthy inside, you can't find wealth outside. You will struggle. And the more you struggle, the more you create tension, the more you create tension, the more you distrust life. You may never trust life. Now, what happened that life begin to use you? And I'm going to be centering on how life shouldn't use you, how you should use life. And every time you're frustrated, life is using you. Every time you are in resentment, life is using you. Every time you say, I'm downcast, like discouraged, life is using you. And we bring those ideas just in the pocket of the many of life so that you can find whichever fits you. I mean, I love that scripture when it said, let not your heart be troubled. Believe in me. That means live in me. For in my father's house, there are many mansions, there are many rooms. So, what we offer here are alternative ideologies, alternative insight, alternative wisdom, alternative knowledge, so that you can just access them, maybe the time you may need them. And if any of your friends are in such a state of confusion, depression, have lost control of life, I mean, where you are confused, where you're discouraged, where everything seems like life is using you, life has trapped you. We want to be able to help you, uncap you out of that slavery. We want to be able to take you out of that victimization. We want to be able to take you out of that lower life. We want to be able to take you out of that confused state and help you keep you in a mental stability, in a mental state of peace, and that reawakening your mental resilience and your mental toughness and mental soundness so that you can be sound inward and you go outside. So here we invite you to goodness. Our cliche is that we dwell in goodness and in prosperity. That's our natural state. That's what formed the state of our mind. Because the state of your mind will determine the story that originates in your mind. And the story on your mind will determine your sensitivity, with which your emotions are connected. And that will define how secured you are or how safe you are. If you're not safe today, it's not because the world is unsafe. It's just because your mental structure, your mental state is not safe. And as within, so without. And that's why we are important that we bring you that the greatest thing that can happen to humanity when they start educating us, inspiring us to do what they call inner work. Inner work where you can live on your own, you stay on your own, and you don't feel that you are disconnected from the world because you are part of the whole, because you're complete and you're whole. Because without you, at this moment, the world is incomplete. So we want to be able to help you stop fighting life. Re-engage your life about how to accept life. And because your dwelling state, your devoted state, will amplify your thinking pattern. And as a man thinketh, so he is. You really can have a sound thinking or aligned thinking without understanding the state, how the state of your mind influences your perception, influences your thinking pattern, influences your belief system, influences your emotional reactivity or responsibility, or predominantly how you act. And I'm excited about the freedom that I've witnessed, how my mental ease, how my mental peace, my mental stability has found such a profound state where I'm unshaken by what people call bad news. Because in my interior world, I reframe what you call failure or disappointment or opposite blessing. I reframe them by the texture of my mind. And I'm so excited about the rejuvenation, the recalibration, the restoration of my mind from a pollution state, from a polluted state, into a place of pure mind, pure consciousness. From a dark, distorted mind to a place of light mind, enlivened, a state of wellness, excitement, joy, predominantly. And I like this state. Your dwelling state, your devoted state, your committed state will influence your entire state, and it will help you define and relate with life and stop fighting it. The reason why you have mental strain is because you're fighting life. You want to be in control. And let me tell you, great achievers are great losers because they let go. Predominantly, that's why their default mate is mercy. Mercy triumph over judgment. They are non-judgmental, non-attached, radical acceptance, not fighting life. Today we're going to talk about something very crucial to me, and I love to deal with that. Self-abuse. Self-abuse. I'm going to take it from a different concept, very different concept today. Really, can anybody oppress you? Can anybody hurt you? A simple, not straight question, because you can answer it in a certain evolutionary stage, rhythm or level. But the more I look alive, I feel that we abuse ourselves. When they say, oh, my boss is this, my spouse is this, oh, the world is this, that level has already classified you where you are. The moment you classify or label or define or perceive enemy, then there's enemy within. And that enemy within is interpreting the enemy without. And that's why you see your desire, what they call the unguided desire, most desires are funded from the wound state of mind. What does that mean? You see, when you say you're angry, your mind is already wounded and identify something outside. That is what trigger out that wound, that reveal that wound. Because of that wound state, it can only speak, it can only be influenced from that place. Of course, that's why you are weak. That's why you are helpless. What they call the learned helplessness. And that's why you're powerless, because what wound does, it makes you a victim that you have no choice. Meanwhile, choice is your inherent access, inherent capability. It's a divine thing that has been given to you. You have a power of choice, and you have a choice even where you don't think you have a choice. And it's free of charge. Inherently. So self-abuse, honestly, is a function of your state of mind. You interpret events either from the word, that what have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against you, or you interpret the word from the state of your wound. That's why you see your wound creates a desire, what they call unregulated desire. Your wound creates fear. Your wound creates pride. Your wound creates all kinds of debased moments. Whether you are frustrated, frustration and all those things are what they call the lower vibration energy. When you say I'm oppressed, I'm angry. That's what brings you to where you have no self-worth. Erode your self-doubt, self-belief. You will start doubting yourself. Wound create fear. Wound create a desire. But wound create need to be seen, to be heard. And of course, wound is associated to what they call your lower self, which is your ego self, that want to defend. We talked about defending. Defending is one of the attributes of a lower self, because you want to defend. You want your voice to be, no, I want your character to defend you. I want your character to defend you. So, where we want to place you is where you cannot operate any longer from a place of wound, but a place of word. Divine word. And once you get into that point and you start defining and perceiving, your perception that is guided from the place of wound will see wound outside. And that's why you can see oppression. That's why you can say this person is toxic, is affecting my. It's not that person. That person is just helping you to reveal what the state of your mind. Your disappointment is not what has happened. It is the wound within you that what has happened connects to. And that's what we're fighting. And that's what you're tensed. And that's why you're wounded. And that's what causes more wound. How do I know this? Let's look at this very fundamental thing. And I will introduce you what they call the non-dual love. So this is why I said this. In Proverbs, chapter 25 from verse 25 and 26. Like a drink of cold water refreshes a weary heart, thirsty soul. So hearing good news revives the spirit. But that's not where I'm going. Verse 26. When a lover of God gives in, that means compromises, get upset, defined or relate or associate with event, the person has forgotten that he has not given up the spirit of fear, but the spirit of a sound mind, of power and love. When you are in that state of love, you cannot be in that state of love that represents joy, peace, loving kindness, generosity, being liberal, being merciful, being kind, being generous, that finds satisfaction. Then you say, I hate. Hate comes from a place of wound, from a place of disappointment, from a place of disagreement, from a distorted lens. The reason why we need to come to knowledge, we need to do a bit of, leave our shallow state of reasoning, of assumption, and come into truth, to discover truth. Of course, the Holy Scriptures was so powerful. Say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Every time you are in that state of frustration, discontentment, feeling worthless, feeling used, feeling taken advantage of, it is not what is taking you, it is your own personal abuse, because you have stepped into personalize it. That's what they call the self-centeredness. Personal abuse is a common reason why you're stressed by other people's action, why you're triggered. So let me continue. Let me finish. When a lover of God gives in and compromises with wickedness, it can be compared to contaminating a stream with sewage or polluting fountain. I like the way GBT put it. A good person, I like that one. Let's say you're a good person who gives in to someone who is evil. Remind you of a polluted spring or a poisoned well. Meaning that your well has been poisoned. And that's what I talk about. Poisoned well means like the wound of life. Disappointment is a wound. Discouragement is a wound. Resentment is a wound. Hopelessness is a wound. Bitterness is a wound. Resentment is a wound. You see, it means once your well is wounded, the spring has been polluted. And it's in that polluted state that you can define external thing as polluted. Because we need to bring it to this realm. That's why you can do something that dishonorable. That's why you're in pride state. That's why you are self-centered. That's why you are impure. Because to the pure, all things are pure. To the defiled, all things are defiled. And it is a major issue. Major issue. Very major issue. We don't take time to do what they call inner work. Inner work is typical of renewing your mind constantly, upgrading your mind, sanctifying your mind, decontaminating your mind, detoxifying your mind from old stories, from old wound, unleashing them, releasing them, unpacking them, evacuating them. So you have to have constant evacuation. And that's why I say the mercies of the Lord, they are new every day. The greatest problem you have is the wounded stories within your mind structure. Wounded stories are more influencing than sound stories. We connect more to wounded stories. Don't forget, the state of your mind, the story in your mind, will determine how sensitive your mind will be. I mean, that sensitivity means how you connect to event of life. The truth is, if you don't take time to unpack ugly stories, they become a fountain with which you draw from references. They become like polluted experiences. And that's why you have to be careful of how you document hurt. You have to be careful how you inscribed hurt, how you define hurt into your mental faculties. Because you see, that's what creates pattern thinking. One of the things two things we're going to talk about this year is what they call inclusive thinking and integrated thinking, and which is a dimension most people don't go because they live in separation, they live in categorization, they live in judgment, they live in resistance, they live in labeling, and those are the attributes that means that your heart needs some upgrade. So I'm going to ask you a question. When was the last time you did a detox in your mind? You know, we all talk about detoxing your body. Everybody wants to detox the body. How about the mind? How do you take time to rearrange your mind? How do you take time to train the mind? The untrained mind is dangerous mind. It can never be centered. It can never be rooted. It can never be grounded. It cannot perform a regulatory function. It doesn't have what they call the legislative arm of the mind that consider events, whether they are pleasing to the Father, whether they are even pleasing to yourself, whether they are pleasing to others or pleasing to environment or to the society at large. Because they don't have a legislative arm. Why? When your mind is not detoxed and you create deliberate filters that filter experiences and choose to ensure that your memory of the just is blessed. Once your memory is not blessed, then you are already going to be controlled by the wounded mind. And the wounded mind is what trigger up all kinds of, it's associated with oppression. And so what I'm bringing is your mind trained. It's a hard thing to do, but it's a good thing to do. When you don't train the faculty of your mind, you pick signals from everywhere, you pick impulses from everywhere, and they are likely going to influence you. So today we're going to be talking about self-abuse. Let's look at it. What is self-abuse? Self-abuse is rooted on your preferences. Is rooted on your likes and dislikes. Is rooted on your classification and categorization, how you classify things. And we need to be careful, because this is really the core of when we talk about mental health. I always say this: everybody that you see here in life is wounded one way or the other. Especially when you are in a state of needing, of wanting, ambition, desiring. They're not bad on themselves. But what fund those desire, want, need, aspiration, goals? What fund those things? It is the state of your mind. I'm really talking about so much about the state of your mind. Is your wellspring, is your funder, is your sponsor, is the capital base of the quality of life that you're going to access. Of course, that's why the Holy Bible said, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospereth. Self-abuse starts from the fact that you do not take time to detoxify the ugly story, the wounded stories that has accumulated, that you have owned. Let's look at a pond. We talked about, are you a pond? Or are you a river? This is what pond does. Is it because ponds are contained and they have no flow system, they don't release. So they contain everything. So if you throw in something, they take it, they trapped it, and is retained. When you throw in something, they're retained. So they are retainers. That's when you're in a pond state. That's a stagnated place. That's actually why if you're not training your mind, if you're not educating your mind, if you're not renewing your mind, if you're not evolving your mind, if you're not reviving your mind, if you're not refreshing your mind, what happened that it becomes like a pond. And now that pond begin to have contaminant drop inside them. Every experience that is not released is accumulated. So when your mind is accumulated with ugly experiences, disappointment, disillusion, all kinds of these things, what happened? Your mind has now been infiltrated by ugly stories. Oh, they raped me. Oh, I didn't have this job. My mates are married. I do not have a child. My boss is after me. My colleagues don't like me. Nobody in the family supports me. Those stories are from what they call from the pond of life, which means your mind have taken a shape of a pond. And so the experiences are ugly experiences that influences the state of your mind. How do I know, Patrick? Intellectual honesty is very powerful. You realize, check about it. Let's say, for instance, give yourself 1 week to experiment this. Take 1 week to say, you know what? I have a sound mind. I'm going to reframe. I'm going to restructure every what I call negative experience. I'm going to count it but joy. And you begin to say, nothing affects me. All stories are good. All stories are good. All human behaviors are good. All disappointments are good. Just continue to document it in your memory bank for 1 week. If you have the strength, take it the second week. If you have the strength, take it the third week. It becomes a state of your mind. And the more you get acquainted with this, the more you are devoted to this saying, just by confession. And now what is that? They build a strong filter system that now it becomes your anchoring state of mind, that eventually it becomes a spring with which you define the world. When I started experimenting the usage of language, and I had read the scripture that Let what comes of your mouth be seasoned with grace, with ease, empowering words. So this day I went out for marketing, and I was coming, and I had like a T junction that had like a circular space. So I was turning, and there's this particular gentleman who was driving a truck, a bit of old rugged truck. Honestly, I don't know whether he was admiring my car or something, but really wanted to. He hit me, and on that reactive state, which is what polluted mind does, because it senses danger, because there's already stories of dangers that you have accumulated. So it means that it's going to access that state of mind and define it. And how you know is the outflow. That's why I say, like, according to the abundance of the heart, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So the outflow is a function of the inner state. It is important we understand this. Is the abuse externally is not what abuse is. It's internal abuse that connects to the external abuse. So that day, I'd almost used a language, but I couldn't access the language. I started smiling, and the man started smiling. When somebody overtake you and you cause the person, it's not the overtake that brought the cause. Is it because within your spring, that's what I say, guide your heart, for out of it the issues of life. And I've always said that life doesn't happen to us. Life happens from us. Because we don't take time to study the nature of our heart, the state of our heart. What conditioned this state? What influences this state? So wound has the capacity to incapacitate the mind and become trapped in a polluted state. And that pollution will see the world from the place of pollution. And that's why, the poor will get poorer. You know why? They have a state of the mind that is poor, and they act out of that poverty until a man's mind is renewed. Okay, let me explain it. Let's say, for instance, they have abused you as a child, and maybe it's a particular male factor or a female factor, and have a certain familiarity. Like you have the future. And for some reasons, you documented that hurt without releasing it because it was temporary. It can't characterize the whole of your days. But now you have permanent what you are not supposed to permanent. And now you have a permanent state in your mind. The thing has happened. It's not happening now. It was a fleeting moment. Yes, I understand it was painful. Yes, I understand it was forced. Yes, understand that you couldn't control. Yes, you couldn't help yourself at that moment. But the only thing that you have a choice now is to reclassify that thing in your mental structure so that it doesn't have a negative connotation. Once you internalize it and you repeat it again. You constantly repeat it. You are now reinforcing it like you are writing it as a wounded story in your mind. If another person comes in, you know why another person will come again? You begin to rehearse that story. The more you rehearse that story, that wounded story, you begin to connect to the emotional state of it. You begin to live in that dislike. You begin to like in that state of pain. Now, those pain and dislike has funded your thinking pattern, which is what you project to the world. And so now you are insecure. You are not sound. Now, another future of that person, you're more thinking about defensive mechanism rather than a place of relaxation, because it's in the place of rest and relaxation that you can find creative mind to dislodge opposition. You won't fight opposition. You won't fight. So you see now, if for any reason that experience happened again, you say, oh, what a part. You now connect the old story to the new story, and you begin to have ugly experiences that your mind is now sensitive to ugly experiences than sound experiences. You will not say, okay, well, I survived it, and therefore, Lord, oh, thankfully, I'm free. But now you're no longer free. You have been conditioned. You have been sabotaged. You have been hijacked by those stories in your heart. They become the influencer. Now you realize that if you see a particular man that has this future, you are likely going to be desiring that this person doesn't affect you like the other two. You begin to fear, oh, is he going to come again? That snare, you are ensnared by that. You are handicapped. And what is funding it, creating those fears, those anxiety, those panic moments, is because you've allowed those stories, those ugly stories, you have retained them. You've allowed them to become free radicals that influences your choice. It's something like maybe you have had miscarriages. You had the first one, you have the second one. Oh, you know how people personalize it? That's my miscarriage that I had 3 times. It becomes like an asset that you'll go and retrieve from the bank. Because now they become bankable stories. And that bankable story have incapacitated you and make you helpless. And give you what they call false identity. And now your identity has been corrupted, because once identity is corrupted, it changes different stories. It's the documentation of experiences in our mind that create these fears and heightened moments and anxiety and panic. You were not like this as a child. You were not this bitter until that experience happened. You were not this bitter until those disappointments you begin to associate with those bitterness. You begin to associate with those failures. But you were free. You believed that you can do better. But now, it has affected your belief system. So that same belief has been taken over with self-doubt. And you see, that is why it's called self-abuse. Because it's the story that you reinvent. Oh, how do I know? They always say, he that repeated matter separate friends. What it means that you were friendly to yourself. Now you're unfriendly. You are no longer friendly to yourself. You are very unfriendly to yourself. Because you now judge yourself. You criticize yourself. Because the inner radicals have taken over your mind. They have predominantly become the state with which you live in. It's time to purge. Patrick, is it that easy? Yes, there's an instrument I know. And it's called the blood. The blood that speaks better thing than the blood of Abel. It works wonder. Start pleading the blood. To every story, recall them. Say, today I plead the blood of Christ upon you. You dissolve from this moment. I disassociate with you. I put light upon you. I change the narrative. You are empowering. You are a source of wisdom. You are a source of strength. And the more you begin to reassociate those experiences with strength and with capacity, with intelligence. And one of the greatest things that I've heard is that when you go to anywhere and you were treated badly, don't go with the story of that badly. Make peace. Make peace with your stories. Make peace with your stories. Make peace. Tell those stories. You know what? I make peace with you. I've accepted you. You are part of my life. You are going to enrich me. You're not going to incapacitate me any longer. And once you make peace with those stories, you begin to reinvent yourself. You begin to be refreshed. This thing helped me. I would have gone into bitterness, into depression over loss. But I made peace with loss. I made peace with disappointment. I made peace with rejection. I made peace with oppression. I make peace with people who take advantage of me. I make peace with situations that did run contrary to my aspiration. I made peace with them. And now what happened is that I began to change the texture of my mind to a peaceful state. Follow peace with men and holiness, without which no man shall see. So that state of mind begin to make me soft, observant, what they call the mind buoyancy. Because now you see, when your mind opens up in a peaceful state, in a place of stability, in a place of loving kindness, in a place of liberality, what happened? You realize that you are changing the stories in your mind, in your interior. What weakens our mind is the ugly stories of wound. The blood is powerful. What is the other thing that I did? Was I began to reframe every experience from the word, divine word. Oh, I picked up one particular divine word that said it is the glory of a man to ignore insult, to overlook insult. My boss will insult me, it's the glory of a man. I choose to relate and define and perceive and see that from a state of virtue. Virtue means goodwill, goodness, right thinking. You can apparently classify event from a higher state of consciousness. How do I know? Let me also explain this. There was a time I was dreaming and I was in a cage for a very long time. I started hating that story. I was so upset with the story. But yet every night I would go back to the same dream where I was in a cage. I did all prayer. Now the problem about when you are in a state that is ugly and your heart is in ugly, you cannot be above the ugly state. You are equal to the state. So every time you said, my mental state is at risk, go and check the story in your mind is polluting your mental state. So you are connected to the external thing. When you hear the deep, call it the deep, that's what it means. What is inside of you? But you make this thing sound so easy. But is that easy? I started relating to that story from a painful state, from an ugly state. I prayed until I get into that revelation. They say, hey, bless it. Bless your enemy. It's as simple as that. When your enemy hunger, bless them. Now, what it means that your spring is full of blessing, and you define things from the place of blessing. But because you are polluted, kayada, that's the thing. So out of the abundance of the heart, that's what, first of all, you see it from ugly state, because your state, your within state is ugly. So it influences your faculty, your speech faculty will be powered by the state of your mind. And I started blessing. And that was they release. From that moment, I released. And that's why mercy, with the Bible says, mercy triumph over judgment. Your wounded mind, your ugly story will be judgmental. Because you are now in attachment. So what we want you to do is detachment. Detachment. And I will tell you how two thinking patterns that we're going to close with. What I call the inclusive thinking and integrated thinking. Or exclusive thinking or separate thinking. These are the dimensions that we're going to close with. But let's look at, so first of all, if you have a wound, make peace with it. How do I make peace with it? You can plead with the blood. That's very important. I plead my mind with the blood of the Lamb. I rescued my mind from the hijack of ugly, wounded stories. I subject my mind to the renewal of the spirit. Divine intelligence are helping my faculty from a wounded state. I rescue me from a wounded state. We become aware of it. You bring it to the present moment. You make peace with it. You're grateful about it. And what it does, you begin to release it. And the more you release them, the more you find space. And that space gives you really ability to re-engineer your mind. And that ugly stories are replaced with strength. And there's no longer self-abuse. So you can look at people and they're acting out of character. You accept them the way they are. And you replace it with compassion and empathy. Because they are speaking from their wounded place. Your husband that is oppressing you is wounded. If you continue to feed that wound, that's why that's why the fight continue. Because you know why? There's no circle of detachment. And we don't ever detached. And detachment is the power of mental stability that lives in inclusiveness and integration without judgment. It's based on neutral mind where nothing affects you and where everything works for you. Because you are in love and have the beauty, what they call the beauty lens. Let me tell you, your mental state will determine whether you're going to have an all ugly lens or a beautiful lens. But when you move from, when you recapture your mind and the story in your mind, it begins to reinvent your lens of beauty. That's what he said. He gives beauty for ashes. He's not looking at ashes for what ashes. He will accept that this is ashes. But he's going to look at it from the heart and say, there's something beautiful about this ash. He's going to design it from the interior state. I mean, I've been abused. When he abused me here, I know that the abuser is in a wounded state. So I need to be able to see from a place of compassion and mercy. People look down on you. It's not because they are down. That's why they're looking down on you. Because you're up. He said they are looking down on me. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Stay in your way they are seeing you. The moment you change your lens, you incorporate their story and into your story. Now you have not left your sound place to your wounded place. And you become insecure. Oh, they are gossiping me. Their stories are bad. And they are speaking from a bad state. So abusing yourself is because you have allowed yourself to incorporate their low, their wounded eyes. Now you are seeing their story, they are speaking from a wounded place, and now you will now internalize it. Once you internalize it, it becomes your property, and it now color the lens of your mind. And that's why you're saying that your mental health is heavy. It is the lens with which you see. And the lens is sponsored by the state of your mind. Purge it. We got to purge, daily purge. That's why it's a daily examination of the stories within your faculty of your mind. With determine, unlock, unpack, unleash them, release them. You're not banking them for any, they are not bankable assets. The guide break your heart. You take his story. It is not the break of heart that is the problem. It is the storyline about that. That's why when you're telling the story, there's an attachment of hate, dislike, disgruntled, and those emotional imprints is what brings you what they call the light body. They charge your entire system, and that's why you're becoming. That's why, because your thoughts are signals. So the more you dwell on those stories from those wounded states, you have now magnetized yourself completely, and that's why you can attract oppression and weakens your mental state. I don't know whether I'm helping anybody. If you really want to live sound, safe, sweet, and secured, you got to consider every night before you go in, check the stories, the disappointment. What is the storyline behind it? Change the storyline, and you see the narrative that is changed will not leave an imprint in your mind. It will not have a domain. It will not pollute your spring. And that's why you see people who understand this, they will never allow any bad story, any ugly story, any wounded story to page in their mind for 1 second. But how do I get into this? Let me give you two things. We are taught to live in like and dislike, in polarity. We're never taught to live in wholeness. What they call the neutral mind. I've thought about neutral mind. Practice neutral mind. Neutral mind that you approach every day without preference. You say, oh, but they say we should set a goal. That goal is also a trap. Goals are just to keep you in a boundary state. They are supposed to just to give you like a disciplined path, but it's not supposed to become the framework with which you govern yourself. They are paths you can walk, but they are not the destiny. So what it means that I said this: if you live if you have 2 rooms, please experiment this. Maybe one is fan, another one is AC. Once in a while, don't stay too much in the AC. The AC will give you a story in your mind that you become. That the mind is very lazy. It likes shortcuts. That's what they call the automatic life, where you respond out of consciousness. You're not in charge. Your mind is in charge. So the more is like recording. Like if you're playing your CD, there's recorded it. So now it keep playing back. But when you have a selection, what they call from the life menu, you're going to select to live in this room that is air conditioned. The next day you live in this room that is fan. What it does that you don't have a pattern thinking. And when you don't have a pattern thinking, your mind is always in that state of exploration, that state of openness. But you see, when you are attached to certain regimented room, you become conditioned to it. Sometimes there's hate, there's love, there's appreciation, there's non-appreciation, there's validation, there's non-validation. They make no sense. Eventually, it is your interpretation of them. It's your dependency on them. It's your label on them. That's what affects you. It's not what has happened. It's the label, the definition, the relationship, the utilization of it internally. That's actually what brings you to that point. If I look at my boss, who is, they said he's a toxic person. I mean, I work with all classes of people, and I say people say they are toxic, they are do that and all that. And I say this person is training me on my mental resilience, on my mental peace, on my mental stability, in the ability to say like, hey, you're not kind until you're kind to the unkind. You can't say you're good until bad people come to you and you remain good. Because your good stories will help you to define. But because we live in duality, today we are cold, today we are hot, we are not incorporating them as a holistic part. So I can be cold today and I can also be hot. So we like coldness, or I dislike hot. But hot is part of your living. And they have their essential benefits. So how do we narrow it down? I formed two things that have really helped me. I call it very important, what I call the integrated living. Integrated living. What is integrated living? So I started exposing to myself to odd. And when I have odd situation, I said, odd situation, how can you benefit me? Because my core values is betterment. So now, to interpret event, I'm going to interpret it from my core essence, which is betterment, which is what I call balance. Balance means that I have a preference. Life has also preference. I'm not going to fight life, what it will. I can't control what life will offer me. So already, I want to be able to put my inner state to a better state where I can use experiences. I've been down, really. I've got experiences. I've got place of detention. I've got disappointment. So when I speak here, it's because of those things. That's what the Bible says. He has comforted us that we might comfort others. I begin my day to have an integrated view of life. And that's so it means that I can be disappointed. How do I deal with disappointment? Now, it is my preference that is not aligned. Like I'm forcing life to align with what is inside of me. It won't work that way. Integration. So what is now inclusiveness? Inclusiveness means I can deal with. How did I get inclusiveness? I got inclusiveness where it said, I have learned to abase and to abound. And none of these ones have an expression around me, because it is my level and my story that governs my experience. So ladies and gentlemen, it is not what happens to you that's affecting you. It's your self-abuse that is affecting you. Because you know why? Once you do not have an integrated mind, once you do not have an inclusive mind, then you live in separation. Once you live in separation, you live in attachment until you begin to detach from outcome, how outcome should be. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be under pressure in your mind. And once your mind is under pressure, you'll be feeding from your wounded state. So what I want to tell you, please today, stop abusing yourself by the story you tell yourself, by the story that incapacitates you, by those ugly wounds that manufacture a depressed mind that connects to wounded people or wounded situation. I bring comfort to you that you can detox your mind. You can renew your mind. You can wash your mind. You can reclaim your mind. It is your right. is no longer going to be a master that lord you, but it's going to be a tool of creativity. And when you come to that creative state, you can create good story out of bad experience. Thank you so much.